Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with 16 fantastic instrumental fugues I couldn't live without. A couple of you asked me to do this one. They said I should do a series based on forms. And I had sort of, I wasn't entirely thrilled with the idea. I got the point. You can do, this one we can do. Let's put it this way. Fugues are kind of fun to do because they are a special thing, a special orchestral texture that most composers diddle with at one point or another. If you want to do like sonata form or minuets or rondos, I don't think it works as well because they're just too common and it doesn't mean anything to put together a list. You're just putting together your favorite list of pieces. You know what I mean? But here you can point to a really particular moment, either an independent freestanding work or a large section within a larger work that's written in fugue, as Tovey would say. So Fugue said, if Tovey described fugue as a medium like blank verse. When you write something in fugue, what you do is you take an idea and essentially you give it to a fixed number of parts or voices in the orchestra or whatever keyboard, whatever you're doing. And every part plays the idea. And then there are episodes where based on other material or developments of the idea. And then you have the idea come back in all the parts in various ways. And then you do things with it. You can turn it upside down or play it backwards or, all kinds of stuff happens, which we don't need to go into. The only thing I would point out in talking about fugues is that, they're just like a round, essentially, with one part following the other for a period of time. The only thing I would point out is that there's a difference between a fugue and a fugato. And I've tried to stick to things that are actual fugues rather than fugatos. People get them confused all the time, and I may have too, frankly. I'm not 100% sure. But the difference is very simple. A fugue evolves its own form. It's a thing, an independent thing. A fugato is just presenting a theme like the beginning of a fugue. That is, one part after the other, and then you go off and do something else. But it's not a complete rounded fugue in the sense that there are multiple entries or expositions of the fugue idea in between episodes of other material. So these, I hope, are mostly fugues. A great example of a fugato, if you know your crazy, horrifying expressionist ballets, is the chase scene in Bartók's Miraculous Mandarin. Where the mandarin is chasing the girl, and it's that is a fugato because the parts come in one after the other and then all hell breaks loose and it just goes off and does something else. An example of a real fugue by Bartók is the first movement of his Music for Strings, Percussion, and Celesta, which is in my list of indefinable orchestral works. So it's not in this list, but it very well could have been because that first movement is entirely from beginning to end for 7 or 8 minutes, 6 to 8 minutes, depending on the tempo. That's a fugue, all of it. So that's the difference. So just give it to you that way. So let's begin. Elgar / Bach. You got to have a Bach fugue, don't you? He's the king of fugue. But I decided to put a little slant on it. The Fantasia and Fugue in C minor, opus 86, which I have played and which is such a hoot. Elgar orchestrated this piece and suggested that Richard Strauss should do one too. And Richard Strauss thought he was crazy and never, even responded to the invitation as far as I know. But this is a brilliant, huge, romantic, psychotic Bach transcription. It's so marvelous. It's like, one of Stokowski's, Bach things, Prelude and Fugue in D minor, one of those transcriptions. But this is a fusion of romantic, decadent excess and Bachian contrapuntal genius. Totally, awesomely fabulous. That's a great way to get us started. Now, the first movement of Beethoven's String Quartet No. 14 in C sharp minor. That's a fugue. The whole movement. Beethoven's late quartets, in addition to being, miracles of expressive intensity, are exercises in the contrast between contrapuntal forms like fugues or variations or other sort of Baroque originating formal strategies, and sonata forms, movements in actual sonata form and other things like that, sonata rondos and whatnot. And that's what makes these pieces so remarkable. They are fusions of the two, you might call them the two great schools of musical composition, the tonally based sonata style and the contrapuntally based Baroque style. And Beethoven does both. And he does it in this quartet with particularly astounding mastery. Next, Schubert's Wanderer Fantasy for piano. Now, the end of the Wanderer Fantasy, the last part, is a fugue based on the dum ba ba bum ba ba bum ba ba bum ba 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 dum da 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 da. One of the things you will find is that when a piece of music has a familiar theme, a theme that's used in various parts, because every part of the Wanderer Fantasy has four movements: an allegro, a slow movement, a scherzo, and then this final fugue. It uses the same idea. But in arranging something as a fugue, in adapting something to make it a fugue subject, quite often it loses a lot of its melodic character, some of the wonderful harmonies and things. And the reason for that is because it's going to have to be played, the same melodic line, by each voice or each part. And in order for those parts not to sound horrible when you play them simultaneously or in succession, in this case, you have to change the melody. You have to make it adaptable to a certain kind of counterpoint that you're going to be using. And so the fugue theme is, da 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 dum, ba da 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 dum, ba 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 da 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 ba da 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 ba. It sounds a little clunky in the fugue version until it all comes together. And then when you hear all the parts going, you go, aha! So that's why it goes that way. And then when the original idea comes back in its original wonderful, beautiful harmony, you get the point. So I just wanted to point that out because it's something that you'll encounter. Haydn, Symphony No. 70. The finale of Symphony No. 70. Oh, it's hilarious. It's a funny fugue. There are funny fugues. And this one is particularly hilarious because it's built out of nothing. This finale is based on four notes. Da, 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 da. Do, do, do. That's the thematic substance. And the whole joke is that from this very simple thematic substance, Haydn erects this enormous contrapuntal edifice, not an Oedipus, an edifice. This enormous contrapuntal edifice with parts flying all over the place. And it's all just based on da, 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 da. I mean, that's the theme. That's the motive. It's just an incredibly witty and joyous work of screaming genius. I adore it. Now let's do another piano one, shall we? Schumann, the Four Fugues for piano. I just love this piece. Schumann was a romantic guy who had sort of a clunky view of sonata form, and he wasn't contrapuntally a genius when he got started, but he became one. He really did. You hear it first, I think, his sort of contrapuntal fascination in the fourth movement, the one that introduces the finale of the Rhenish Symphony, which is a gorgeous, beautiful piece of liturgical style counterpoint with trombones. It's really, really beautiful. And after that, he became really rather fluent as a contrapuntal composer. And the Four Fugues, Opus 72, are just wonderful pieces. And very little played, and they get very little attention, just like the Songs of Dawn that I enjoy very, very much as well, some of his late works. They're just wonderful. Give them a listen. Give it a shot. You'll be very, very happy. I guarantee it. Then we've got Walton, the finale of his first symphony. That has a terrific fugue in the middle of it. Now, so many composers use fugues because they don't know what to do. It is the last vestige of the Romantic composer is to write a fugal development section, because you got to write a development, you got to fill it up, and you don't know what you're going to do. Write a fugue. That's what Rachmaninoff does in the first movement of his first symphony. He writes a fugato. It's not a fugue. But this is a fugue, this thing that Walton does. It goes on and on. It goes on and on like that, and it's fabulous and brilliant, and it eventually intermixes with the actual recapitulation, and crashes into the coda of the finale. It does it very effectively. It's a last movement that sort of gets a lot of crap hurled at it, because Walton famously couldn't figure out how to finish the symphony. He wrote the first three movements, and then he had trouble with the finale. And you may argue that emotionally, the happy ending, which it's happy from the beginning, it may sound a little bit facile, but as a piece of music by itself, it's quite a piece of architecture. A wonderful, wonderful thing. So after Walton, Charles Ives, String Quartet No. 1, that first movement, which is based on a hymn tune, from Greenland's Icy Mountains or something like that. One of those wonderful hymn tunes that Ives always was able to use so wonderfully and adapt it so beautifully. And he does it here. Each clause of the hymn becomes the subject of a sort of contrapuntal elaboration. Because it's Ives, it's probably not a fugue in the orthodox sense of the term, but it is pretty extensively contrapuntally worked out all the way through it. It's a beautiful quartet. It's early. It's an early work. It's not one of his crazy things, with crazy dissonance and multiple keys and all that, like the second quartet is. But it's a very, very attractive piece of music that deserves to be better known. And the opening fugue is quite lovely and sounds nothing like Beethoven's opening fugue. So that's another mark in its favor. Next, Hovhaness, his Symphony No. 2, Mysterious Mountain. The second movement is a double fugue. A double fugue is simply a fugue that has two ideas. It's on two subjects. And you can present them either together, that is, you could alternate them, doing them at once, or you can do one and work on it, and then do another one and then work on it, and then combine them later. There are lots of ways you can do it, but Hovhaness was a fantastic contrapuntist. He loved writing fugues, and he wrote many, many very, very beautiful ones that are very straightforward, very clear. And this is one of those. It's an absolutely lovely. Well, the whole symphony is lovely. It's in three movements. It's gorgeous. But this particular double fugue has so much character, and it's so much fun just to listen to and hear how the themes work their way in and out of the orchestral texture. Totally marvelous. Next, Norwegian composer Finn Mortensen. He wrote one symphony. He was kind of crazy. He really was. And he wrote a bunch of fugues that were totally insane. He wrote one for piano that I saw the manuscript of. It was completely nuts. But the symphony, his one symphony, has a finale, which is a triple fugue. It's got three different subjects that all get combined at one point or another. It's a great symphony. It's a masterpiece, and more or less in the style of Paul Hindemith. If you like Hindemith, if you know his music at all, then you'll enjoy the symphony. But it has a fantastic modal motto theme that sounds an awful lot like the main theme of Barber's second essay for orchestra. Da 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 da. Well, no, that's Mortensen, but don't worry about it. It's great. It's absolutely great. The whole symphony is very contrapuntally based, and this finale is a knockout. It really is. So afterwards, it's Shostakovich, his 24 Preludes and Fugues, Opus 87 for piano. It was his updating of Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier, which saves me the problem of including Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier. You can do it if you want. Either book or the whole thing, it's your choice. But the 24 Preludes and Fugues, Opus 87 for piano, are wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. They cover an enormous range. The preludes have all kinds of different forms. Some of them are little scherzo and trios. Some of them are little dance pieces, little polkas and whatnot. And the fugues have an incredible variety of subject matter and harmonic stuff going on. Definitely a major masterpiece. And it was really only uncovered by the musical world at large in the past 20 years or so. And since then, it's been recorded like a dozen times, which is typical for the record industry. They're always looking for a major work by a major composer that nobody knows. And once they find it, they all jump on it simultaneously, and we get thousands of recordings. But it's a fantastic work. One of the great collections of fugues for any instrument. And similarly, Anton Reicha, 36 fugues for piano. These are very, very interesting. Some of them are based on like Mozart's Hovhaness Symphony or other composers' works. They are contrapuntal fantasias. They are illustrations of Reicha's new method of writing fugues. And if you think I bothered to see what that was, think again. I have no clue what he was getting at. I do know that these are wonderful works, enjoyable works. And, Beethoven looked at them and said to Reicha, "What are you doing here? This isn't a fugue." But they are extraordinary. They are contrapuntal. They do what they're supposed to do. And there are 36 of them. There have been recordings of the whole set on CPO, which may be impossible to find as physical product, but it's available. It's available as a download. The pianist is Tiny Wirtz. It's the pianist, if I'm not mistaken. And there are also excerpts from it in various places, but they're fun and enjoyable and remarkable, independent, original works of art. So you should give them a shot. Then we've got Nielsen, his Symphony No.5, the second movement. The second movement of Nielsen's Fifth is essentially an introduction followed by two fugues, one fast, one slow. The first one is totally self-destructive and blows itself to smithereens. The second one is very, very thoughtful and measured and finds its way back to the music of the opening and hence on to the glorious coda at the end. It's an incredibly effective handling of form and an amazingly brilliant way to listen to some tremendous instrumental counterpoint. It really is. It's an incredible movement, and the fugues themselves are fabulous. Then Mendelssohn's Prelude and Fugue in E minor. It's for piano. It's his Opus 35, number 1. The whole set is called 6 Preludes and Fugues, but number 1 is really special. It's an amazing piece of music. You've got this prelude, then the fugue begins, and it rises to just one enormous climax after another until finally a chorale theme, like a Lutheran chorale sort of thing, comes in at the climax of the fugue. And I can't even begin to describe how grand, how magisterial and emotionally gripping this piece is. And you would never think it's by Mendelssohn. If you have some idea of Mendelssohn as this kind of, foppish, lightweight composer who wrote, elegant but not terribly deep music, listen to this. It's his tribute to Bach. I mean, he knew his Bach. He was whipped into learning Bach when he was a kid. And it's glorious. It's absolutely glorious. One of the great keyboard fugues that you'll ever hear. Next, Britten, The Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra. Of course, a lot of variation works end with fugues because the variation form is very sectional, right? You have one variation, then another one, and they're all sort of independent little pieces. And so if you want to end the piece effectively, a fugue is just the ticket because you build up this large architectural thing at the end based on the original theme. And it usually makes for a very satisfying and grand conclusion. And that's exactly what happens here. It's particularly wonderful here because the variations each illustrate a separate instrument. And so the variations are all different from each other, but they're all different from each other in terms of their instrumental color. And so it's even more important that there be something unified and larger and more coherent at the very end of the work. And Britten achieves it with his usual genius. The theme of the fugue is not the theme of the variations. The theme of the variations is combined with the theme of the fugue. And that's what makes it so marvelous, because you have this very fast, very active, boiling fugue subject, which is ripping through all of the orchestra. And then the original theme comes in on top of it in long notes, making for just the most wonderfully judged climax you've ever heard in your life. It's just tremendous. Then, here's another wonderful orchestral fugue. It's in the middle of another work. Roy Harris, his Symphony No.3. Harris's Third Symphony is often hailed as one of the great American symphonies. It's in one movement, and it is. It's tremendous. And the third section of it is a fugue, a coherent, basic fugue. It's integrated into the overall flow of the music. The work begins with a sort of orchestral threnody for strings, and then there's a pastoral episode, and then the fugue, which is based on a tune bum bum ba da 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 dum dum ba da da bum bum ba da 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 dum. It's very catchy, extremely catchy, and that leads back to actually a tragic conclusion. Really, it's a wonderful work. If you don't know it, it's only about 18-20 minutes long or something. It's not very long, but it's extraordinarily beautiful and cohesive and tightly composed. And the fugue is essentially the part that develops all of the material in the symphony. I mean, it gives it that necessary weight of substance after the pastoral episode. It's really, really, really beautiful. And last but not least, we have to do this one. Bruckner, Symphony No.5, the finale. It's a 25-minute long double fugue. It's based on two subjects. Dum bum bum ba-dum bum bum ba-dum 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 bum bum. That's one. And the other one is da 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 dum. They get combined, and it's all very clear how Bruckner handles it. And he organizes it as part of a gigantic, also kind of sonata with development type thing that's all contrapuntal. And then at the very end, you have the theme from the first movement gets slammed on top of the fugue business, and then the chorale comes in, and it all goes crazy, and it's just one of the glories of contrapuntal writing. It really is. It's a completely insane symphony that nobody else could have written. And you cannot talk about fantastic instrumental fugues unless you include this finale. It is one of the most remarkable pieces of writing, totally unexpected and strange, but eccentric, but glorious. So there you have it, my friends. 16 fantastic instrumental fugues. Now, if you know what fugues are and you like them, please feel free to give me your own list. You can take stuff from mine because it's got to be stuff you love. Remember, it's what you love, not what you can find, not what was in the bottom of the closet. It's stuff that you love and you know what it is. And if you're a beginner and if you don't really know what fugues and contrapuntal forms are, just listen to some of these things and look at the other lists and see. You will, nothing teaches you better than listening. The music tells you about itself as you hear it. So don't be intimidated by this at all. Listen to these pieces and just enjoy them. And you'll know all you need to know. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.